from diverse retail segments. On the extreme left, we have Dhiraj, who's the co-founder of Campus Sutra. Claim to fame is reaching a 1,000 crore run rate bootstrapped in the apparel industry. So, which is a phenomenal achievement given the challenges that you typically have in the apparel industry. And then next to Dhiraj, we have Atul. Atul is from TCI. TCI, as you know, is the short form of the Transport Corporation of India and one of the leading logistics service and warehousing providers in this country. Next to that is Menon, who's one of the pioneers of online retail in India. I think at the turn of the century, it was Fabmall, and from then onwards, he's more popular with Bigbasket. So he's learnt his lessons the very hard way with Fabmall and applied a lot of that when he moved into food and grocery at Bigbasket. So he was one of India's earliest omni-channel retailers. Used to do online and also had an offline store in Forum Koramangala, from what I do remember. Rasika is the co-founder of Soulfull, a company which has now been acquired by Tata Consumer Products. She and Prashant also continue to run that business. It is taking alien. Come, Manas, come. I was wondering, we had one shot, I was wondering. Come. Sorry, why don't you sit this side? Oh, sit here. So Rasika, taking a Western concept like breakfast cereals and indigenizing it with native grains. So the first millet cereals were something that they pioneered, and then of course everything else went in chocofills and various other things like that. Vijay is the co-founder of Rare Planet. Rare Planet is a airport retail only, from what I do remember, connecting rural artisans with high-end customers. And I think that's a great combination because you're doing airport retail, you're actually translating what are rural skills, creating products out of it through a combination of design and quality, and bringing it to retail stores in airports, which showcases India's artisanal heritage to a large number of people. And then, of course, Manas is, we've always heard of SaaS models for IT companies and technology. Have you ever heard of SaaS for water? So he does SaaS for water. You just need to pay for the liters you consume of water in your house, and you don't have to, and this is for pure drinking water, okay? And you don't have to worry about the capital investment in a RO machine or an AMC that you have to pay every year. So it's a very different model in terms of making sure that you get water at an affordable price on a revenue model. So this is what we have. Each one of them represents an industry which is quite different from each other. So you can't really find anybody here who is actually the same. I'm reminded of a saying by Andy Grove, the former chief of Intel, who said that only the paranoid survive. And I think what it means is that you constantly have to look behind to see who's catching up, and you constantly have to look forward to figure out where can I create a new path. And when you think of innovation is today not just a matter of running your business, it's a matter of survival. It's the way you're able to differentiate yourself from your competitors, create a unique proposition for the customer, whether it is efficiency in terms of cost, whether it is experience as we were discussing in the earlier session, but in some ways create a differentiation as far as the customer is concerned. So first I'd like to start with a 1,000 crore brand which didn't seek 1 rupee from an external investor. So if you can tell us about the Campus Sutra journey, and did you start with saying, I don't want anybody's money, or did you discover a business model along the way which didn't require any money? So how did this whole journey begin?
So we started from a 400 square feet office in a building which was supposedly haunted. So that building was lying vacant for 32 years. Story था कि यहाँ भूत आता है. MG Road के बिल्कुल पास में था, कोई लेना नहीं चाहता था कि रात. And from there we started and built one of the biggest D2C setup in India. Now just our dispatch center is about 2 football fields, and we are the only fashion brand to be present in 22 countries. And we work with the likes of Macy's, Nordstrom, Zalando, you name it. As far as funding is concerned, obviously like any other startup in the D2C world, when we entered, we went through our grind, right? I remember sitting with the managing partner of one of the biggest DC firm, and the conversation went something like this: your numbers are great, you guys are doing a good job, but you're in a bad neighborhood. So basically, that was the time when VC investors had invested a lot of money in the companies like Yepme, Zoe, a lot of these companies who had raised millions of dollars, right? 50, 60, 70 millions dollars, and all of them had shut down, right? So this kind of stuck with us. We are in bad neighborhood. So if we have to succeed in this industry, we have to do things that the industry is not doing, right? Just following what the industry is doing will not lead us anywhere. So that was the thought process. And if you look at how D2C is built in India, you'll see that most people build D2C by building the front end first, right? We were very clear that in fashion, building a 20, 25, 50, 100 crore business is easy, right? Anyone can do it. Building a 1,000 crore business or a 10,000 crore business requires a different set of mindset. It requires you to approach the problem differently, right? Here the magic is through the back end, not the front end. So that's where our focus was on. We kind of, we made some 96 changes in the back end, in the supply chain of how the fashion industry is run. And thankfully, none of us come from fashion background. All the 4 of us who founded this company, none of us come from fashion background. So, just by using common sense, logic, the first principle thinking, and seeing how we can do this efficiently, right? So that has been our mantra, and that has got us wherever we are.
Thank you. So did it help that you didn't have any familiarity with the apparel business?
100%. I think, especially an industry like fashion, which is very quite old, right? There are certain way of doing things. So if you go to all the established brands, you go to Arvind, Madura, they'll say कि यार ऐसे season होता है, this is how the seasonality works, these are the kind of products you need to do, this is how you set up your vendor, right? And that in a way limits you. So for example, when we started the business, people told us that if you want to make a shirt, it takes 45 days. And our thought process was that to stitch a shirt, it needs only, 2 hours or 3 hours. Why does it need 45 days? So we didn't start from the thinking, a shirt will take 45 days. We started from the thinking, a shirt can be manufactured in 3 hours. The industry is taking 45 days. Can we do it in 3 days? Right? So that was the change in thought process. That was the approach that we took. And that's what we have been doing throughout, right? So whether we are launching a new market, or we are planning our inventory, or we are building tech, right? We take the approach that how can we do it differently, how can we do it from a very commonsensical approach, not looking at what the industry does or what is followed in the at other places.
Great. So I think, clearly 2 things that you are articulating. One is, if you are seeking innovation, don't look only within, also look from outside to be able to help you to innovate. And the second is, you've certainly a great example of the theory of constraints application in terms of understanding where are the challenges in the larger process.
Thus, we are very clear that we are not in the business of innovation, right? I know it's a very contrarian thing to say. I'm supposed to say that innovation is very important and all of that, right? But if you look at the maths does not work. In any industry, there are hundreds of innovations taking place, right? Out of that, 3 or 4 are relevant to you. Out of that, the chances of success, so it's just like 1:1,000, right? So we are in the business of scaling innovation. So our effort in the company has been to kind of build processes and systems that understands the industry, sees what are the innovations that are taking place, and just scaling it. And that's what Sam Walton used to do. My initial years were in Walmart, and I'm a very big fan of Sam Walton. So Walmart was built not by innovating. Walmart was built where Sam Walton used to go to all these different territories, used to see what's happening in the small stores and wherever Walmart store was, and take that innovation, implement it across US, right? So we follow this philosophy to the T. That instead of looking at coming out with new ideas, obviously you come out with new ideas as well during the course, you look at what are the things that can be scaled. So we are in the business of scaling and not in the business of innovation.
Sure. Thanks, Dhiraj. Rasika, a question to you. When you all pioneered the concept of what was those days raggy cereals, what was the logic behind it? Because the rest of the world was on corn, and you all switched to ragi.
So, I mean, the logic behind it was very simple. I mean, both of us were in the US and we had graduated from fairly decent schools. We were lucky we were in Berkeley. And at that point in time, if we had to come back to India, like my father-in-law, who's my mentor, said, you have to come back to India to give back to the India story. Otherwise, you'll take a U-turn. And my co-founder, who's my husband, his uncle is Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who's the father of the Green Revolution. We were just lucky that we met him in San Francisco when he was there. And he said, if you youngsters want to come back to India, you need to solve a problem I did not solve. And he said, I solved hunger satisfaction. 8 years down the line, that's not going to be relevant to India. So you need to solve for nutrition satisfaction. And at that point in time, quinoa was a very big grain in the US and it was doing extremely well. And he told us millets have the same nutrition content that quinoa has, and no one brand benefited from quinoa. Like quinoa became a commodity. So he said, if you revolutionize millets and make it fashionable and aspirational for the Indian consumer, then you are going to be able to make a difference in the way they consume, and you have to do it effortlessly. And we understood, if we go out and tell a consumer that you eat millet, they're not going to be eating millets. So even today, when we make products with millets, we use millets to solve a consumer problem, which is a consumer pain point. So the reason we started with breakfast cereal was, it was very simple for us that you had to target one of the meals of the day, because otherwise you're not going to increase your frequency in the shopping basket. Lunch and dinner was not an option because Indians don't like to eat the same thing every day. We could see how the urban Indian consumer was moving towards convenience. So we said, why can we not enter breakfast cereals? We also had a Western hangover. And we said, okay, why not do breakfast cereals, which an Indian consumer does not mind eating the same thing every day. Kellogg's, who was an international brand, had created a fairly large size of this category. So it was about taking share of this category by offering a better for you product. When India was moving into the so-called health space, but they wanted something tasty, and Kellogg's was considered very international and not Indian. They had not moved yet to their communication becoming healthy or it's good for you, etc. Having said that, we also very quickly realized that in India, kids consumed breakfast cereals as snacks because there was no snack, because there was no large pie of the category for 4 to 14 years old. So that's how we then dovetailed into kids' breakfast cereals, which then started getting consumed as snacks. I don't know if we were fortunate or unfortunate, but we entered the market just before the e-com revolution happened. So we had to grunge it out in offline retail. And at that point in time, we understood if you don't have a product that can eventually become your 5 rupee, 10 rupee price point, it's difficult to scale and actually take nutrition to the grassroots. So I think all of these things together made us realize that how you take a millet, solve a consumer pain point, enter into a category which is large enough, and with a differentiated offering, you're also creating a barrier to entry. So where years of work is going to help you create the technology and scale and fight the big boys. I mean, I say that when you're sitting here. But most importantly, if I have to give you a simple example, right? Masala oats. And let me give you a very simple example. Saffola pioneered masala oats, fantastic product. We realized very quickly that the consumer pain point with masala oats is that it becomes sticky. Now, why is masala oats eaten? Because it's convenient. So the moment you make it hot and keep it, you can't eat it immediately because people are busy. But you leave it for 3 minutes and it becomes sticky. So it was the non-sticky proposition that actually converted the consumer. So we brought about the non-sticky proposition and we said, non-sticky must taste zabardast. So when you're straight away talking to that masala oats consumer, that's what his pain point is. And what are you solving it with millets? And then you have the nutrition. So, and just to give you a validation of how this works, we launched our masala oats a year and 3 months ago. Today we are at a 15% market share across blended. So these kind of things, when you go consumer first and you solve a problem and you use an indigenous grain, I think it worked well for us.
Great, thanks Rasika. Lovely story, and I think clearly the example or the learning out of it is that often people say that innovation is about doing new things, but it is also about doing old things differently. And I think that's clearly the lesson. You didn't have to invent a grain, you just took another grain and repurposed it to be able to make it, looked at differently. Manas, your story is also very interesting about water, which is the largest consumed category of products in the world. okay? The biggest share of throat, as they say, is water. How did you think about getting into RO water and specifically constructing this business model?
Sure. Thanks. So, yes, water is the largest consumed category. But having said that, I have had many discussions with very renowned people where I had to defend the total addressable market, or TAM as they say. So that's the irony of it, right? Yeah. So we started DrinkPrime not because we wanted to get into water or because we were from a water background. Like someone mentioned earlier, we had no idea about the water space as such, but we wanted to solve a problem, and more importantly, a problem that people like us were facing, and which was at that point in time, almost everyone I knew were consumers of water cans. So if you look at a little bit on the macro landscape wise, water purifier penetration in India is still today less than 10% compared to a TV penetration which is 70% or a refrigerator penetration which is 40% of households. So massively underpenetrated category. While at the same point in time, most of the homes and offices, even today if you go to bachelor homes or you go to smaller offices, you would see bottled water consumption being exceedingly high and water purifier still not being as prevalent as it should be. Now bottled water obviously has its own set of shortcomings, which is it is bad for the environment. Number two is the quality controls that you can get at a point of use water purification system. You would never be able to get that with bottled water. So that was the problem that that we were facing, and we initially started off as a platform where our consumers could order bottled water. We did that for a while, and what we observed that bottled water, water purifiers are a better option, but water purifiers have a high cost of investment attached to it. Hence, many people are not able to afford it. Number two is, unlike a TV or a fridge where you can buy stuff with EMI once and can forget about it, a water purifier every year would require between 25 to 35% of the MRP of the product to be spent as maintenance. So even if you own a water purifier, you don't really own a water purifier per se. So so that's how the concept of DrinkPrime was born, wherein we married the best of the bottled water, which is convenience, no upfront investment, and start and stop anytime, to the best of the water purifier, which is the superior purification quality and point of use usage. So that's how the concept of DrinkPrime evolved.
And is yours a prepaid or a postpaid model?
So we do have both, but primarily for consumers, it is mostly prepaid.
Prepaid.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's IoT controlled, right?
Yes, it is IoT controlled, where our consumers just can track how much water did they consume, what is the health of the device, schedule proactive maintenance services, all through a simple app. So if I were to pitch it to any consumer, think of it like a prepaid cell phone. Like in earlier days, Vodafone or Idea or Airtel used to have this prepaid cell phone kind of things. Think of the water purifier in the similar way, where you just recharge the water purifier for the amount of liters that you are going to consume, and you consume it till then. And when the water purifier validity or the liter balance reaches zero, the water purifier stops dispensing water, and you do a top-up recharge, or you recharge for 1 more month, and you get safe drinking water from the purifier.
Sure. Thank you. Hari, this question is to you. 2 questions. One question is, when you embarked on the Fab Mall model, and I hate to take you back 25 years into history, but when you embarked on that model, what was the thought? And when you embarked on the Bigbasket business model, what was the thought?
This can be a slightly long answer, but I'm going to try and keep it short. It was Fab Mart first, right? And that Fab Mart was the most difficult story, right? Fab Mall is easier because we got into the physical retail space, and it was not just Forum. When we exited and sold the business to the Aditya Birla Group, we were 200 stores at that point in time, along with all the Trinetra stores and stuff like that, which we were running. Fab Mart was fascinating. So when we started Fab Mart, it was 1999. It was a very accidentally became an entrepreneur because I used to work in a company called PlanetAsia.com at that time, and we were selling websites to companies and selling websites for 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, and and then in a few days it became 5,000 to make a website. So we were working there, and we had pitched to a company called to a bank, Citibank, and we wanted to do. Citibank wanted to actually, create a payment gateway. So can you imagine, we had started a business which is an internet-based business, and there wasn't a payment gateway available in the country then. So how would people pay? I'll tell you that story. And that's a scary story, actually. So we went to Citibank, sat in the office and met this guy. And I don't know whether how many of you all remember, and you all were there in that era. That was the first debit card launched in the country, and it was called Suvidha. Okay, yeah. And so Suvidha was the product that which we were pitching to, and they wanted to create a payment gateway for it. So that, now what's the point in creating a payment gateway when there's nothing on the internet available to use it, right? So then this bright person came up and said, oh, listen, we also will create a website, a transaction website for it. So can you also do that website? So create a website, transaction, create payment gateway, done, right? You've now created an internet economy, so as to say. A week later, we went to follow up on what happened. So suddenly they get a message from their headquarters saying that, sorry, you're a bank and you can't be making websites. And that was the idea. Prestige Meridian, MG Road, we climbed up, and me and my colleague Sudhakar came down the lift, looked at each other and said, did we hear something? And that's the moment of truth when we actually decided to start FabMart, and we said, can we do that website? And we went up again to Citibank, and they gave us some money, and we built the first website without a payment gateway. That is how FabMart happened. There's another little story, because just a few months before, there was this gentleman who sold his business to Satyam, and he made $100 million. And that was the first time somebody selling a business and making money. And everybody got so excited, especially the venture capitalists, and I'm sorry about that. People were then just all over the place saying we must promote internet-based companies. We were closing deals in 2 weeks. Sat at the old HAL airport, bitten by mosquitoes, on the steps of that airport, and signed our first term sheet with Chris Capital. And with those kind of, that was the craze that happened at that time, all without a payment gateway. Remember. So there's photo.com, myhouse.com, mythis.com, mythat.com, and hundreds and hundreds. So you will know the story of 99. And within a year, the whole bubble bust, and it was all gone, dead and buried. That's how we started the first business, right? And of course, we kept running it for a while. Reliance came in, gave us a little bit of money and stuff like that. The biggest learning that came out of that is, if you don't have an ecosystem ready to run a business, don't ever attempt it. And I'll just tell you, end with a quick story on how we used to take payments, right? And this is the most scary part. We used to have 3 people sitting. The customer used to give you the card number and the CVV number. And so these 3 ladies sitting there are authorizing the card. And a few days later, it's all over the press saying, if you shop online with your card, you will have nothing left in your bank. It was a headline. And in environments like that, obviously all businesses collapsed. And in a short period of time, there was no business. That learning, that when you do something like this, make sure it matures. And so when we did Bigbasket, of course, then we went on, pivoted into physical business. That scaled, because that business was a known business. Food World was the only other, and Nilgiris were the only other competitors, that we had, and we managed to bring in technology and stuff like that, scaled it, and thankfully at the end, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. We sold that business to the Aditya Birla Group and got out. But when we started Bigbasket, the first thing we looked for, not just payment gateway, but everything else that the business needed was there. Flipkart started this 2006. They went through the same struggle till 2009 when there weren't takers. The business was just kind of happening. And we started 2010. Smartphones, everything that was needed for the business was there. And I think what took us about 4.5 years in FabMart to build, I think we built in 2-3 months. That's the difference between the 2 businesses.
So you were in the right business at the right time.
Correct.
Why did you choose grocery?
That's because we were in grocery, and in our businesses, unfortunately, we have to raise money. So when we went to raise money, we found it a little easier for people to believe in our grocery story because we were grocers earlier. And we were online earlier. Okay. So online Fab Mart, physical grocery. So investors put it together and we raised money quite quickly actually at that point in time. Yeah.
Very good. Vijay, question to you. India has a deep tradition of artisanal skills. Unfortunately, these are rarely showcased because you don't get to see this in any sensible store. But you took the effort to be able to, A, create designs which they could make, institute quality standards so that the products looked good, and thirdly, showcased it to the right audience, you know, at domestic and international airports. What caused you to take such a hazardous bet?
Honestly, it was not as a planned decision. Okay, so when we were one of the suppliers to WS Smith and Relay, for example, they were one of the formats in airports. So we were like I started with a B2B format. We were the suppliers. Well, luckily in between, we had a chance to sign up one of the airports. The day we signed the first airport, the COVID hit. So it was like 12 months we were strangled. Nothing happened in that time. So, but unfortunately, that was the biggest advantage for us, where everybody was out from the airport, not doing business, exiting the airports. So we thought this is the right time for us as a startup who don't have any so-called experience or any kind of even infra also to start. So we started with one, and from 2021 till today, we are the largest, honestly. We have around 60 stores. Name the airport, we are there. That was one of the expansion we did. Last year, from Jan to December, we opened around 35 stores in one calendar year. It was, for us as a small setup, this was one of the, biggest challenges to monitor a lot of things. So secondly, actually, as you said, the biggest challenge even today, what we face is a very unorganized format. Okay? People don't understand, or even the artisans, the person who makes the products, they don't have that kind of a visibility. Yes, I think last couple of years, due to internet and all the social media, definitely they have got a fantastic visibility also. But they don't have a physical store or represent or put their products in the right place. So that's what we try to bridge from a local artisan who's sitting in one of the villages, get the product, make them understand what the urban or the Gen Z wants and what are the kind of format and what are the tweaking they have to do. That's what we try to understand, get the product from them and try to showcase. In between all these, the one biggest advantage for us, the retail was, we need not have any customer acquisition, honestly. You know, airport is a model where, or a particular place where the traffic is driven automatically. I think in the last couple of years, airport industry has been very, very largely accepted. And maybe in the next decade, I think one of the fastest growing format we can tell in terms of transport actually. Today also you can see every month on month, there is a lot of incremental in terms of the people traveling. So for us, that is one of the biggest advantages, that we are trying to be at the right time as the airport booming is on, and make an unorganized format to get the product at a certain place, place it in the right place, and have at a national level one single price for a particular product, whether you buy it in Jammu or right from to Chennai, we'll have a same product at the same MRP. That was one of the big things.
Great. And when you thought of this model, how did you think of the partnership between the artisans and you?
See, honestly, getting into the nerve of the artisans is very difficult because they have their own old age traditions. They don't want to come out of certain things. But I think the more you spend time with them, they are more the sweetest. And they also want to ultimately have a platform to sell. So that's what made us to have a huge network of people. And they are also ready and they're happy that today their products are not on a seasonal basis. Earlier you used to see that either Diwali or Rakhi, somebody used to give some kind of a gift or something. But today, whatever the production or whatever they make, we can consume and put it in the right product at the right place. The quantum is justified. Yeah.
Okay, great. Atul, question to you. TCI is one of the oldest and the largest in terms of transportation. But when TCI morphed into different forms to be able to adapt to the market in terms of requirements. So I remember when e-commerce started, TCI morphed into that. When the rapid delivery system came, which was the overnight delivery, TCI adapted to that too for physical products. So can you just explain about how do you all in the logistics business look at the way the market's moving, and how do you translate that back into products and offerings?
Right. Thank you very much. First of all, it seems I am the odd man out here. But
No, you are powering all their businesses. Yeah. No Soulfull would have moved if it not been for you.
Yeah, but then I'm quite lucky to be in the august company of such great brand builders. So as the previous panelist said, we are not 65 years old, we are 65 years young. And being a pure freight company from there till now, we are a value-added services company. So what I feel is that, I'm not representing TCI only, I'm also representing the overall 3P fraternity. We see that, the times have evolved. Now, most of these brands who are, doing a lot of business, they have also taken a lot of chunk out of the big 4, 5 in their various categories. So they are all working on their own. So in order to get that hold of that business, we have also transformed ourselves. Taking cue from what the Zivame panelist said, we have also created a brand neutral structure when we have offering a brand neutral service, we have brand neutral platforms to take it to the entire geography of the nation. So all these years we have built, we are in real sense a true Indian company because we are working in all the geographies. We don't have a sweet spot or a weak spot when it comes to the geography of India. So we have built platforms which are frugal. I'm taking cue from what he said, we can't invest much in innovation because that's the cost on us. But I think we can do a fairly great job for the startup industry in taking you to the hinterland and giving you, and to answer your question, we have transformed our products into such frugal manner that you can scale and descale with us. You can also change your formats with us, I'll just give you a recent example. Upcoming brand consolidation company started a e-com business with us at 14 places around the country. And as we speak, they are at 9 places. In those 9 places also, they have changed the model. At some places, they are at purely apparel, some places they are in white goods. So we offer such flexible, solutions to the industry. And in order to adapt to what's your requirement and take away that pain from yourselves. So that's what we do.
Great. Like to throw the panel discussion open to the audience. Any of you all have any questions, please raise your hands. Somebody will come with the mic and then you could ask your question. So any questions? I can see one hand raised at the back there. You want to take one of these mics?
I know when you started the business, you did not go through you didn't concentrate on the front end, but rather on the back end. You worked on the back end a lot, more than you did on the front end. So could you please tell us in detail about what the different back end process that you first strengthened to create such a beautiful brand?
Do you want to take a separate consulting session for him?
Still work in progress, I guess, So when I say back-end, right, our thought process was that if you look at any successful fashion company around the world who have survived and who have done well, whether it is Zara, H&M, you name it, right, all of them had a back-end story. So Zara claim to fame was, we are the fastest to the market. We deliver fast fashion in 21 days, maybe we are in the store and things like that, right? Whereas if you look at how brands are built even today, forget about 10 years back when we started, right? 90% of the founders' effort goes on the website, the repeat customers. These are the metrics that you'll hear most of the D2C guys talking about, right? So we knew that if we have to, and as I said, fashion, creating a 20, 40, 50 crore business in fashion is the easiest thing to do. Anyone can create a 50 crore business in fashion. The challenge or the main KRA of a fashion business is how do you make a scalable business? So we knew that the scale will come through differentiation in backend. So what we did, I think, will be a long process, but I'll give you 2-3 things that we have been able to achieve, right? So if you look at fashion industry and there is a term called mind to market. So if I like the shirt that you're wearing and I want it on the floor, usually the industry takes 6 to 18 months to bring it on the floor. We do it in 21 days. So I like your shirt, 21 days, it will be there on our, in our front end, right? Our inventory turnover ratio, our inventory sell-through, usually the industry works at about 80%. We have a 99% sell-through for apparel. Which is like, I don't think, most or any brand in India kind of achieves that, right? Our inventory turn is 90 days, which is usually 180, 270 days for the industry, right? So a lot of focus that we have put in this has given us a lot of these advantages, which is helping us grow. So that's what I think is.
So sometimes when you come to think about it, Indigo is the most efficient air transportation company. Amazon is the most efficient supply chain company. So there are, stories like this where the back end powers the front end. And the brand is built at the front end, but there is a very, very powerful back end which actually creates it. Sorry, any other questions?
I really enjoyed your story. But if you look at it from 99 till now, e-commerce and retail and everything else has changed so many times and has evolved many times. Tell us a little bit about how you as an individual, along with your co-founders and your organization, was able to understand competition and the various dynamics of the market and still stay ahead of the curve.
God, this is actually, I'm not too sure whether I know what I did, but I'll try. So when we started, FabMart, FabMall, when those are early days, we realized, for example, in FabMall, to do the grocery business, one of the things that we found people were not using, and maybe it's because it was not accessible and not available, was technology. And bringing in technology into grocery physical retail, right, was the thing for us to do. And we knew if we did that, we would actually really differentiate ourselves and make us more efficient, and so many things that could, and it was so obvious, right? And there was reasons that people didn't do it was because I guess technology was also at that point in time very early, and people are scared to kind of, adopt to all of that. So that was one change and movement that that we did going forward. And fast forward to really Bigbasket, we continued to use that as a cutting edge. But most importantly, I think the story was all about building the back end, right? And that was really important to us. And what we built is not as important for me to tell you, but what we chose to do as an outcome or decide the outcome of back end was what was more important. And there were just three things that we wanted to do. And those three things, we wanted to make sure that we, even when we wake up in the morning, sleep in the night, these three things just keep hitting you, hard on your face, because that's what's going to really make a difference. So I'm just talking about the way we evolved to figure out what we want. And those three things was really simple. The first thing was, is fill rate. So if I order 10 items, can I deliver all 10 to the customer? Because if I don't deliver all 10, then you're forcing the customer for the 2 items that you've not delivered to go to a store. And if I go to a store for those 2 items, I might as well buy everything there. What's the point in having to do two things? And to get to 100% fill rate meant that I'm not going to get hard on, I think Britannia is doing good on that, is that when companies at fill rate, they run at 70%, 80% fill rate those days. And when a supplier is running at 80% fill rate and you're expected to do 100% fill rate to the customer, it's not possible, right? Unless you use technology here, and that's one of the things that we really have pride on, which is our reordering system, which then tells us, keeping supplier inefficiency in mind, also built into the technology to how much to order. And that helped us get to 99.6%, which we've run right now for 11 years. Second is on-time delivery. India, roads, all the stuff that you felt. So can I get to an on-time delivery? Customers feel comfortable. I choose a slot. and it comes in that slot, right? So whole game was to get to a 99% efficiency. So somebody was here from Locus, so we used a lot of this routing and a lot of the stuff that we threw into it. And we've consistently been at 99, 99.1, come rain, come hell, whatever. But we will make sure that, we get you there. And third is availability, which is how do I get to a 96, 97% availability, which is best in class globally. And when I say availability, only 4% and 5% of my SKUs should be seen as out of stock. And that again comes back to efficiency that I build on supplier on my reordering. So we consistently kept maintaining 96, 97% in stock. And that was again global. So these three metrics that I told you at that point in time, the only global partner that we were benchmarking was Ocado. And we were like, way ahead. And these three things we sleep on. We used to get up, just throwing this number. I made sure every warehouse had a whiteboard and that number was written there every morning. And we just chased it like anything. Just bid on back end. So it was more about the outcome. And all this came out of, building processes and technology and building a solid back end that we did. So I don't know whether I've answered your question on evolution.
No, you've answered. I think he's got more than what he asked for. Thank you. So I know our time's up. We are already running behind schedule. So thank you for the very patient listening and for those wonderful questions. Thank you to my panelists for sharing so generously of your knowledge and creating, learning and experience for the people in the audience. Thanks a lot to everybody.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session, ladies and gentlemen. Now we would like to proceed with the felicitation.